Hey, this is Katie.
Hi.
This is my mom.
Hi.
Basically, Rylan wanted us to talk about how she reacted to finding out about my DID and kind of from her perspective. So, first, I was going to ask you, how did you react when you found out that I had DID? Like, what were your thoughts?
Oh gosh.
Maybe when the symptoms started before I was diagnosed, and then when I
Yeah.
had the diagnosis.
Lots of thoughts, but initially, Katie was talking about losing time, not knowing, just being confused. She had started some medication around that time, and I thought, well, I've never heard of this, but maybe, memory symptoms
Yeah.
are something from this medication. So I talked to the doctor, and they're like, well, not that I've ever heard of, but we can go ahead and stop the medication just to be on the safe side. So we did that. And she was still experiencing these lapses of memory and lost time. And so it was just puzzling. And then the first time that I remember someone saying to us that Katie had become very different was it happened at a group therapy. And this doctor came and said, I think that she's experiencing dissociation. I think it's DID. And he said, I'm not by any means an expert in DID, but I have seen it before many times. It's not my specialty. And I would recommend always that someone seek a psychiatrist or a therapist that specializes in it. But I've seen it enough that I think this is what it is, and I think it is the real thing. It doesn't seem like, it's not like overt. It's not like she's just coming out and doing all these blatant things.
Right.
She doesn't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden she's just acting completely different. Still had my reservations, still was like, okay, this is like the rarest disorder on the planet.
Yeah.
Not true, as I came to find out, but that's what everybody initially thinks. It's the rarest psychological disorder, if that's how you want to phrase it, and it's not.
Out of 5 therapists that I've been to, 3 of them have worked with DID before. So it can't be that rare. One of them was an expert in DID. The other 2 just happened to have worked with it before me. So it's not as rare as people think.
Yeah, and that's something that was a huge shock to me because I, like most people, heard, oh, this is so rare, it almost never happens, it's,
Anyway.
So yeah, the other thing that was really surprising was that it usually stems from trauma, whether it's something experienced.
Stems from
well,
trauma,
yeah, it
as far
always
as I
stems
know.
from trauma. And I'm thinking, well, this kid has grown up with me. How, I didn't traumatize her. Her dad didn't traumatize her. So we weren't aware of some aspects of what had happened when she was young. It was something that happened outside of our family unit, I guess. So, that was another shock to me. And I feel like a lot of the misconceptions that I had were from just not being educated.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what the disorder really was, how it's caused, what its symptoms are like. And it was a huge learning process for our whole family.
Another thing, and we've already basically been over this, but just for verification, because sometimes when I say, well, you think I don't have DID, you think you know better than the expert who specialized in DID for over 30 years, and they're like, well, you're probably lying about the expert.
No, the expert in DID was a doctor who is, I don't know if we're supposed to say like what area we live in or
It doesn't matter. I don't think.
in the Midwest.
Yeah.
She is a pretty well-known psychiatrist. She also deals with gender studies, for whatever that's worth to anybody.
Yeah.
And she is a member of, what was it? The Trauma and Dissociation.
I don't know.
Yeah, some professional group of therapists who deal specifically with trauma. I can't think of the
Yeah.
name of it offhand. That's how I found her, was I was looking on all these websites, dissociative disorders and memory loss and all these things. And I found this specialty. I was looking for doctors who could diagnose whether or not, and honestly, I was thinking of an exclusionary diagnosis. I was thinking, okay, we're going to have a doctor that specializes in this, and they're going to say, oh, no. This isn't really DID because that's really rare. And this is what it actually is what I thought I was going to hear. And then we found this doctor, and she was pretty well known. Once we did research on her, she'd been on television appearances and a lot of different things. And she was not cheap. We had to pay out of pocket because she doesn't accept insurance because she doesn't want to be paid the insurance rates. But she has worked with a lot of DID patients. Yeah. A lot of DID patients over decades. Yeah. Because she's in her 60s, I think, and has been doing this pretty much her whole career. Yeah. Wrote some papers on it, how it comes about, things that she's learned clinically over treating patients and everything. So she was the one that definitively diagnosed it. Before that, we had a therapist who basically did, what did they call it?
I don't remember.
Oh,
it was a really long test.
It was a long test, a bunch of hundreds of questions. Yeah. And it was basically to see whether or not, well, number one, whether or not she was making it up. Yeah. And number two, whether everything she was saying was consistent throughout. Yeah. And Katie didn't know that was the purpose of the test.
Yeah, I thought it was to see if I had DID or not, but apparently it was to rule out malingering or whatever.
Or conversion disorder, which is basically where you are experiencing psychological symptoms that then convert themselves into physical symptoms. You're not doing it on purpose, but your symptoms are psychological rather than caused by, a disease or something.
Well, would DID be a conversion disorder? Because I have memory loss, but it's psychological, right?
Right, but that's not the same thing. This would be like if you're having all kinds of stomach pains or something that imitates another disease. And again, the therapist also thought we were going to find that it was inconsistent with DID in whatever way. And she came to me and she's like, I thought it was going to be inconsistent, but, there's no tried and true, 100 question test that if you score 70 or above, you have DID. But she's like, we can't exclude it based on this. This is, this was an exclusionary test that I thought we were going to find that, okay, it's not DID, and I can't rule it out now. And that kind of surprised her. So.
Another thing, a lot of people don't realize, they think I just decided to make this up one day and have been acting ever since, basically. Well, for one thing, my mom's not going to back me up on this because she's my mom and she thinks everything I do is great. I'm not a very good actor. I used to be in plays when I was little because I enjoyed the company. I enjoyed the, the environment and the people there. And my brother was in plays, so I didn't want to feel left out. And he was a really good actor. Yeah. And I was always afraid. I never wanted big parts, and I always had one line, and I always said it so quietly. I remember my line from Aladdin was, "Thief, thief, somebody stole my bread." And I was so quiet. I got yelled at every time in rehearsal for not being loud enough. I'm just not a very good actor. Or I don't know if I'm a good liar or not, but my mom probably doesn't know either because she can tell when her kids are lying.
Usually I can, and honestly, when you were young, it wasn't so much a problem with you lying as it was arguing with my decision. But mom, you were the rationalizer, trying to change my mind. It wasn't Jonah might be sneaky and lie about things. Got pretty good at reading that, but with you, it wasn't so much that you ever really out and out lied. Yeah. You might make excuses or you'd argue with me of why I was wrong. And I didn't think you were a horrible actress, but definitely nothing of the scale to keep something like this going for, day in, day out for years. And nobody could do that. I don't know why they would do that.
I don't know why I would do that. People say I would do it for attention. But for one thing, I'm not a person that likes attention. I hate giving speeches. I hate attention. I hate being the center of attention. It makes me feel small. I just don't like it.
Yeah, she was always known as the quiet one in school.
Yeah.
It was never like, oh, there's Katie again showing off.
Yeah.
And we all know kids, she was never like that.
I remember in art class, like, every week in art class, I would talk because that was the only class where we were allowed to talk, like, without getting in trouble. So that was the only time I talked in school besides recess. And every single week, without fail, somebody in my art class would come up and be like, that's the most I've ever heard you say.
Yeah.
Every week. So, like, I got made fun of for being so quiet. I'm not an attention-seeking person. Like, people not understanding the stigma, like, people telling me that I'm lying about it.
Mm-hmm.
Those things hurt sometimes. I wouldn't, if I was going to find something that would get me attention, why would I pick something like that? You know?
Right. Yeah. And not just that, but just having witnessed, like, the psychological pain that you suffered through over, I mean, several years since before your diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it manifests in a lot of different ways at first.
I was so scared of what people would think. I got my GED. I didn't finish high school because of the DID. I was just diagnosed. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't have control over my alters at all at that time. And I was afraid that certain alters would come out and make a scene at school. And the last thing I wanted was for someone to make a scene.
Yeah, that's true.
I like cried every time I was getting so like worked up because I was falling behind in school and I thought I was going to fail and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't know, like, I guess if you don't want this shared, you can edit it out.
Yeah.
But like somebody that's in a lot of psychological pain, you know, you can tell because the way that she withdrew for a while, like, not wanting to be involved in anything she used to like. She quit dance. She quit piano lessons. She quit chorus. All the things that she used to like to do. You know, and then you have like self-harm. You have, you know, cutting, burning herself, starving herself. You know, it's all these things that are expressions of just this anguish that you're going through psychologically. You know, which was horrible, but that's not the kind of thing that people do for fun, for kicks.
Right.
You know, there's way better ways to get attention, you know, than, I mean, I could see if this was just like a lark and she was just doing the altars and nothing else.
Yeah.
But the whole backstory of everything that has gone into it. I mean, the times that she's cried and said, you know, I'm not worth it. Why don't you just let me go? And I'm thinking, what? Why would you say, you know, but that's how depressed she was at times. And, you know, hopefully it seems we're in a lot better place now, a lot better place. But there were times when I didn't know if she was going to make it. You know, I just didn't know if you were going to, I was so worried I was going to lose you because of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I'm not an emotional person, so hopefully this doesn't, I'm going to get it together. Okay. But, yeah, she would not do that to me and to her dad and her siblings. Nobody fakes all the things that she's been through. I could see some people might fake DID, but anybody that's been around her, spent any length of time with her, and I was as doubting as anybody at first. But I kind of thought if it's not real, it's not that she's making it up. It's that there's something else going on, a chemical imbalance, a medication or something. Because it didn't fit with all my preconceived notions of DID. And I'm thinking, well, if it's really DID, how come the altars haven't come out in front of us that much? Right. And how come, you know, all this? And every single thing that we asked her doctor, she was like, oh, no. This is typically what happens, and here's why it happens this way. But she explained why this happens, why the altars try not to let people know always in the beginning that they're altars. Why, you know, just a whole bunch of different things, questions that we had. And sometimes she would say, oh, and this, you might have noticed. And it was exactly what we were seeing. Yeah. So, I mean, it felt like the earth just shifted under us. Like, what do we do now? And this is just so outside of any realm of anything I had ever experienced.